Somewhere outside the boundaries of any single universe, there is a city. It floats in space without a planet beneath it. Its skyline curves around itself in a slow spiral that never quite finishes turning. The lights of its towers stay on all night, which means nothing here because the night never ends. Whatever direction you look from one of those towers, the view is the same. A black field stretching out without horizon, broken only by the soft glow of street lamps far below and the slow drift of pedestrian traffic on the sidewalks. The city has a name that only its inhabitants use. They call it the Citadel, and every single person who lives in it has the same face. Walk down any street, and the men passing you on the sidewalk will all be variations of the same elderly figure. White hair, blue lab coat, eyebrows fixed in a permanent state of mild contempt. They argue with one another in cafes. They sell each other groceries. They complain about taxes. They swear at each other in alleyways and apologize in stairwells. These are the Ricks. They are the same person, copied across an infinite number of parallel universes and brought here to govern themselves. Each of them is a genius. Each of them believes he is more intelligent than every other person in any room he walks into, including the rooms full of himself. Walking beside them, half their height and a quarter their age, are the boys, the Mortys. Yellow shirts, blue jeans, brown hair, mouths a little open, eyes set wide and unfocused. They come in different sizes and sometimes different races and sometimes wearing different clothes, but they are recognizably the same boy. Each of them is the grandson of a Rick. Each of them was pulled out of his original universe to follow a Rick around on adventures, because of something a Rick once said about brainwave compatibility, about how a Morty's stupidity cancels out a Rick's genius, and how a Rick traveling with a Morty becomes invisible to certain kinds of cosmic surveillance. The Ricks need the Mortys to hide behind. The Mortys need the Ricks because without them, the first mystery is the simplest one to state and the hardest one to answer. Where did he come from? Not in the geographical sense, because we have a pretty good picture of where he came from in that sense by the end of Season 3. The question is more fundamental than that. Every Morty in the multiverse is supposed to be the same person at the core. That is the whole conceit of the show. Mortys are interchangeable parts. They are Rick's biological camouflage. Their brainwaves are compatible with the brainwaves of any Rick, because the Mortys, like the Ricks, are infinite recursions of a single human template. So how do you get a Morty who isn't a Morty anymore? How do you get a Morty who plans, who waits, who builds, who lies for years at a time without breaking character, who runs a national campaign in a city of geniuses without a single one of those geniuses catching on, who walks past Ricks at parties and watches them not see him and uses that invisibility as a weapon? The show offers an answer, and we will get to that answer. But the answer doesn't really resolve the question, because even if you accept the origin story the show eventually told, that some specific traumatic events made this specific Morty different from the others, you still have to explain why those events broke him in a way that produced what he became, rather than what every other broken Morty becomes. The Citadel is full of broken Mortys. The episode that introduced the Citadel's underbelly, the Ricklantis mix-up, showed you Mortys working in factories, Mortys driving cabs, Mortys living in slums, Mortys begging for change, Mortys joining police forces, Mortys becoming criminals, Mortys committing suicide off the edge of platforms. Mortys break in the Citadel all the time. Most of them break inward. They give up. They go quiet. They drink. They get on drugs. They die in the back rooms of clubs and nobody notices because nobody counts the Mortys. This one broke outward. This one looked at the Citadel and decided not to die in a back room. Decided not to drive a cab. Decided he was going to become the only Morty in the history of the Council of Ricks to walk into the chambers at the top of the spiral and sit down in a chair built for a Rick and never leave it. And the question of why this specific Morty had that response, when the same trauma in another Morty's life would have produced a corpse in an alley, is the question the show has been pointing at since 2014 and has never quite resolved. Maybe he was always like that. Maybe there is something inside the Morty brain template, some recessive trait, that sits dormant in almost every variant and activates only in the right conditions in one out of an infinite number of versions. Maybe what we call evil Morty is just the statistically inevitable freak, the one in a never-ending series of coin tosses where the coin finally lands on its edge. Or maybe it goes further than that. Maybe the show has been telling you, in pieces, that this particular Morty's brain was different from the very beginning. Maybe he was the original, the first Morty, the Morty that came before the template was set. the one whose existence created the brainwave pattern that all the other Mortys are now imitating, without knowing they are imitating anything. There is a theory, popular among certain corners of the fandom, that Evil Morty was Rick the 137's actual original grandson, the Morty who came before our Morty. The Morty who was replaced in Season 1 when our Rick crossed dimensions with our Morty and abandoned a wrecked version of Earth to live in a new one. Under that reading, the Morty we have been following for 10 years is the replacement, and the Morty we should have been following is the one who got left behind. That theory is something we will come back to. The reason it matters now is that the answer to the question of where Evil Morty came from changes everything about how you read the rest of the show. If he is just a random freak, then the Citadel was unlucky. If he is the original, then the entire structure of Rick and Morty's relationship is built on top of a broken thing the show has been hiding from you in plain sight. Either way, the show has not committed. It has dropped clues in both directions and walked away from both. The mystery is not just unsolved, it is left open on purpose, in a way that suggests the writers may not have decided on the answer themselves, or in a way that suggests they decided long ago and are simply waiting for the right moment to confirm it. We don't know which. Nobody knows which. And until somebody at Adult Swim breaks the silence, the question of who Evil Morty is at the deepest level remains the largest open door in the entire show. The second mystery sits right next to the first one, the eye patch. You first see it for half a second at the end of close Rick counters of the Rick kind, on a small figure walking away from a dungeon scene that has just resolved without him being identified. You don't know yet that the eye patch matters. You don't know yet that the figure under the eye patch matters. The shot is set up as a kind of throwaway button. The Council of Ricks have come in and killed Evil Rick. They have rescued our Rick. They have taken him into custody. Our Morty has run to him crying. The scene that the audience thinks is the climax is over. And then, after all of that, the camera lingers on a small Morty in the doorway, watching the rescue with no expression on his face, wearing an eye patch. Then the episode cuts. You are supposed to remember that face. You are supposed to remember that eye patch. What is under it? The show takes years to answer this, and the answer it gives is not a complete answer. In the Rick Lantis mix-up, 3 seasons later, you see the eye patch up close for the first time. It is not a piece of cloth, it is technology. There is a small lens embedded in the leather, there is wiring. There is when the eye patch is removed an empty eye socket underneath, with a port at the back of it where the device locks in. The eye patch is not covering an injury, it is occupying the space where an injury used to be. The device is doing something to the brain on the other side of that empty socket. What it is doing is left ambiguous. The fan reading, supported by visual evidence the show has dropped across multiple episodes, is that the eye patch is a piece of Rick-grade neural override technology that has been modified to do the opposite of what it was originally designed to do. The original use of that kind of device, as established in Season 1, was for Ricks to control Mortys, to pilot them like meat puppets. A Rick could put a Morty in restraints, plug a device into the back of his head or the back of his eye, and operate him remotely as a vehicle for performing tasks that required Morty brainwave camouflage. Evil Rick used a system like this in the original dungeon scene. You see his bank of Mortys plugged into the wall like batteries, eyes glowing, hands twitching, while Evil Rick sits at his console drinking and operating them through their pain receptors. The reading that has gained the most traction over the years is that Evil Morty's eye patch is a piece of that exact system, that at some point in his history, a Rick put one of those devices into his head and used him as a vehicle, and that at some later point, Evil Morty figured out how to reach into the device, rewire it, and turn it from a leash into a mask. He doesn't wear it because something is in there controlling him. He wears it because he has rewired it to make himself harder to scan. The device originally projected a Rick's intentions through a Morty's body. The modified version blocks any Rick's intentions from ever reading him. If that reading is correct, then the eye patch is a trophy. It is the piece of his own captivity that he kept and turned around. It is the only thing he ever wears that is not standard Morty issue. By the logic of the device, it should be the marker by which other Ricks identify him as a threat, and the marker that he has used, because of how completely Ricks ignore Mortys, to walk through the Citadel without anyone ever stopping him to ask why he has a piece of forbidden tech bolted into his face. What the show has never confirmed, and what the fandom has been arguing about for years, is how much of that reading is correct. We don't know who installed the device on him originally. We don't know what happened to that Rick. The modifications Evil Morty made to the eye patch could be entirely his own work, or he could have had help, or the device might have been given to him already prepared by someone we have not yet met. And whether he still uses it for what it was originally designed to do with the polarity reversed, or whether he has built something else inside it entirely, is also unknown. The show has shown you the eye patch 100 times. It has never let you see inside it. There is something almost ceremonial about the way Evil Morty handles the device when the camera does focus on it. He treats it as a piece of his face that he can remove and put back on at will. He has been seen taking it off for cleaning. He has been seen putting it back on with both hands, one finger placed precisely on the connection port at the back of the socket, head tilted slightly forward as if in concentration. The gestures are practiced. He has been doing this for a long time, longer than the show has been showing him to you. The eye patch is older than the version of him that you know. We will keep coming back to this question. The eye patch is going to keep showing up. It is the closest thing the show has to a recurring physical symbol of Evil Morty's interior life, and it is the place where almost every theory about him eventually converges. Whatever the truth is, the show has wrapped it in a piece of leather with a lens in it, and has been daring you to imagine what is on the other side for over 10 years now. The third mystery is a hand. A specific hand, attached to a specific arm, holding a specific cleaver, frozen for less than a second in a flashback that the show has shown you twice and never explained. In close Rick counters of the Rick kind, in the dungeon scene, Evil Rick tortures our Morty by forcing him through a sequence of false memories. The intention is to break his attachment to our Rick. Most of the memories are fabricated nice moments, false birthdays and false fishing trips, that Evil Rick reveals to be lies in order to crush Morty's spirit. But buried inside that sequence is a flashback that does not belong to our Morty. It belongs to someone else. A small figure, smaller than the others, is shown on what looks like a bed or a table. There is a hand reaching in from outside the frame. The hand is holding a small implement. The implement is moving toward the small figure's eye. The shot lasts a fraction of a second. The audience is not given time to process what they have just seen. The scene cuts back to our Morty crying in his chair. For years, fans treated this flashback as a misdirected piece of editing. Evil Rick was supposed to be torturing our Morty with false versions of our Morty's life. Why would a memory from another Morty's life appear in the middle of that sequence? The most common explanation for a long time was that Evil Rick's machine was malfunctioning, that it had grabbed a stray piece of someone else's memory by mistake, that this small figure on the bed was a separate Morty whose history had nothing to do with our Morty's history, and whose presence in the flashback was a continuity error. Then the Ricklantis mix-up aired, and the same scene reappeared in a different context. Evil Morty's origin story. The same hand, the same implement, underneath both, the same small figure on the same bed, but now you could see the rest of the scene around it. The figure is a young Evil Morty, a child, possibly 6 or 7 years old. The hand belongs to a Rick. The implement is not what most viewers thought it was the first time around. It is not a knife or a scalpel. The implement is a piece of equipment used for installing the neural device that becomes, years later, the eye patch. The Rick in the scene is performing surgery on the child. He is removing the child's eye and putting a device into the socket. The child is awake. The child is not restrained, exactly, but he is not resisting either. He is looking at the Rick with an expression that does not register as fear. It registers as something colder, something more like recognition. This is the only sustained look the show has ever given you at Evil Morty's pre-eye patch life. It is the only image of him as a child without the device in his face, and the show frames it not as horror, not as trauma, but as a kind of inflection point. Whatever was happening in that room was happening to a child who already understood what was being done to him and was already cataloging the experience for later. The question the flashback raises and never resolves is who that Rick is. He is shown only in fragments. A hand, the back of a head, the lower half of a face, a shoulder. The show is careful not to give you his full face. There are theories about why. One reading is that this is Evil Morty's original Rick, the Rick who raised him, the Rick whose authority Evil Morty eventually overthrew. Another reading is that this is not his original Rick at all, but some kind of Citadel-affiliated surgical Rick, whose job was to perform these procedures on Mortys throughout the Citadel as part of a standardized program of neural compliance. A third reading, more speculative and more disturbing, is that the Rick in the surgery scene is not a separate character at all, but is in fact our Rick. Rick the 100th 137, performing a procedure on a much younger version of his own grandson in a timeline that has been erased and is now only accessible through traumatic flashes inside another Morty's stolen memory machine. The show has not confirmed any of these readings. It has not denied any of them. The hand in the flashback is just a hand. The implement is just an implement. The room around them is dimly lit and almost featureless. The child on the bed is the Morty he was before he became the Morty he is now. The procedure being performed on him is the procedure that produced the figure walking around the Citadel today with a piece of forbidden technology in his eye and a long memory of who put it there. If you watch the flashback closely, there is a moment near the end of the sequence where the child's remaining eye flicks to one side, as if looking at something off camera that is not the Rick performing the surgery. Whatever he is looking at, the camera never shows you. The child is registering something in the room that the audience is not allowed to see. Whatever it is in the room with him at the moment the device goes into his head. Whatever it is still relevant to him today. And whatever it is, the show has filed it away in the kind of place where it might be retrieved years from now and turned into something the audience suddenly understands, or might never be retrieved at all and might remain a quarter-second flicker in a child's eye that nobody ever explains. The fourth mystery is the Rick who got killed in the dungeon, the one the council shot, the one your Rick and your Morty and the entire audience spent the climax of close Rick counters of the Rick kind believing was the architect of everything. Evil Rick. That was the name everyone used for him at the time. He was supposed to be the antagonist of the whole episode. A Rick who had gone rogue, who had built a machine to harvest the memories of multiple Mortys, who had been killing Ricks across dimensions, who was the dark mirror version of the Rick we knew. The reveal at the end of the episode is that this evil Rick was not running the operation. He was being operated. The small figure standing in the doorway with the eye patch was the one in control. The Rick the council had just executed was the puppet. The Morty walking away from the scene was the puppeteer. That reveal is one of the most quoted moments in the show. It is the foundational image around which every evil Morty theory has been built since 2014. But under the surface of that reveal is a question the show has never answered. What was Evil Rick? Not Evil Rick the character, who is dead now. Evil Rick the thing, the body, the vehicle. Was that Rick a willing collaborator? Was he a victim? Was he alive? In any meaningful sense, by the time the council put a bullet through him. There are 3 reasonable readings, and the show has never come down on any of them. The first reading is that Evil Rick was a willing partner, that he and Evil Morty had built an arrangement together, that Evil Rick wanted, for reasons of his own, to do the things he did to other Mortys, and that he found in Evil Morty a junior partner whose investment in the project was equal to his own. Under this reading, the puppet language used by the show is misleading. Evil Rick was not being controlled. He and Evil Morty were collaborators, with Evil Rick serving as the public face of the operation, and Evil Morty serving as the strategist behind the curtain. The eye patch device on Morty was not for controlling Evil Rick, it was for camouflage. To make Evil Morty look like just another assistant when Citadel security came sniffing around. The second reading is that Evil Rick was a captive, that at some point in the past, Evil Morty had taken a Rick prisoner and rewired him into a vehicle, just as Ricks had once rewired Mortys into vehicles. Under this reading, the relationship is an inversion of the original power arrangement of the show. The Morty has taken the Rick and turned him into the kind of biological appliance that Ricks once made of Mortys. The cruelty of the situation is that Evil Rick, the body, is still in there somewhere, watching what his hands are doing without being able to stop them. The bullet the council put through him at the end of the episode was less an execution than a mercy. The third reading is that Evil Rick was not alive at all, that at some point in the past Evil Morty had killed his original Rick, preserved the body, and rigged it for animation. The Evil Rick the audience saw in Season 1 was a corpse on strings. The mouth moved because the strings made it move. The hands worked because the strings made them work. There was no Rick inside Evil Rick at the moment of his death, because Evil Rick had already been dead for some time. What the council destroyed was a piece of mobile furniture that Evil Morty had been wearing as a mask. Each of these readings produces a different Evil Morty. The first one gives you a collaborator, someone who has the capacity to work with a Rick when the terms of the partnership are clear. The second gives you a captor, someone whose cruelty extends to the absolute possession of another being's body. The third gives you a necromancer, someone whose relationship with Ricks is so thoroughly transactional that even Rick mortality is something he uses as a tool. The show has shown you nothing that decisively rules out any of these. Evil Rick has not come back. The autopsy was not performed on screen. The neural device used between the two of them was not recovered intact. The Council Ricks who fired the shot did not stop to ask what they were shooting. They saw a Rick committing crimes and they shot him. The Rick they shot is no longer available for questioning, and the Morty who was walking him around like a marionette is several jurisdictions and several years away by the time anybody thinks to ask what really happened in that dungeon. The fifth mystery starts where the fourth one stops. It picks up the question of how a Morty learns to do this kind of thing in the first place. Operating a Rick, in any of the 3 readings above, is not a small job. Even if Evil Rick was a willing partner, even if he was a captive, even if he was a reanimated corpse, the level of technical capacity required to maintain any of those arrangements is far above what any Morty in the multiverse is supposed to be able to do. Mortys are not engineers, surgeons, or neural specialists. The whole premise of the show is that the Morty brain is the part of the Rick-Morty unit that is not equipped to handle complex science. The Rick does the science, the Morty does the camouflage. So how does this Morty know how to wire a brain? The flashback we already discussed gives you part of the answer. He was operated on, he was modified, he has first-hand experience with the technology because he has had a piece of the technology in his head since childhood. But understanding what a tool does to you is not the same as understanding how to build the tool. Most people who have had surgery cannot perform that same surgery on someone else. Yet by the time Evil Morty walks into the dungeon scene at the end of Season 1, he is operating a Rick at the level of full sensory motor integration. He is making the Rick speak. He is making the Rick lie. The Rick under his control is running a research operation that involves capturing other Mortys, draining their memories, and managing a household full of restrained prisoners. That is not just a piece of tech. That is a working knowledge of neuroscience, kidnapping logistics, household management, and counter-surveillance. Where did he learn it? The most common fan theory is that he learned it from the Rick who installed the device on him in the first place. That whoever that Rick was, the relationship between them did not end when the surgery was over. That Evil Morty spent years being raised, or being kept, by a Rick who taught him things no other Morty in the Citadel was being taught. Maybe as an experiment, maybe as a project, or as an obscure form of legacy planning that has not yet been explained. Under this reading, Evil Morty is the only Morty in the Citadel with a STEM education. He is the only Morty who knows what a neural override device actually does, because he is the only Morty who was allowed to look at the schematics. He is the only Morty who can perform Rick-level work, because some Rick decided, for reasons we do not know, to give one Morty the keys. A second theory is that he taught himself, that the device in his head, the original purpose of which was to allow a Rick to operate him remotely, also gave him passive access to the cognitive patterns of whichever Rick was operating it, that every time his Rick used him as a vehicle, the device fed information into Evil Morty's brain that was supposed to be one way. The Rick thought he was driving. Evil Morty was, at the same time, reading the dashboard, reading the route the Rick was taking, reading the maps the Rick had loaded into the system. Over years, that passive bleed would have accumulated into a working education. By the time Evil Morty was old enough to take the device off and turn it around, he had already absorbed enough of the Rick's training to operate on Rick terms. A third theory, and this is the one that goes the deepest, is that he never had to learn anything. That his brain, for whatever reason, was always capable of operating at Rick level, and that the only thing the device was ever doing to him was suppressing capacity that he already had. Under this reading, the surgery in the flashback was not the moment of his elevation, it was the moment of his containment. The device was put into his head to keep him from being what he was always going to be. And the moment he removed it and turned it into a tool of his own, the suppression ended, and he became for the first time the person his brain had been designed to be from the beginning. That third theory, if it is correct, has implications that go beyond Evil Morty as a character. It suggests that every Morty in the Citadel might have that same capacity sitting dormant somewhere inside them, that the Mortys are not stupid because Mortys are stupid. The Mortys are stupid because something is keeping them stupid, and if something is keeping them stupid, somebody is doing the keeping. The mystery of how Evil Morty became capable opens up immediately into the mystery of why every other Morty is not. The show has flirted with this idea. It has not committed to it. It has not denied it. The device in Evil Morty's head, whatever it is doing, is the only example we have ever been shown of a Morty operating at full strength. Until we are shown another, The question of whether what we call genius and what we call stupidity in this show are the same condition in different states of repression remains open and dangerous. The sixth mystery is the campaign. By the time the events of the Ricklantis mix-up unfold in Season 3, Evil Morty has been operating inside the Citadel for years. We do not know how many. The show is careful not to give you a date. What we know is that at some point between his cameo at the end of Season 1 and his reappearance in Season 3, he stopped being a fugitive Morty walking through Citadel streets and became a candidate for the Citadel's highest political office. The transition from outlaw to politician happens off-screen. The show does not show you the part where he builds a public identity, builds a campaign team, raises money, becomes known to the Citadel's political class, or stages a viable run. By the time the camera comes back to him, the work has already been done. He is on stages, he is on posters, crowds are booing him and cheering him. What was the campaign actually about? The official platform was Morty Writes Populism. He spoke about the conditions Mortys lived in. He spoke about the dormitories, the schools, the police precincts, the assignment system. The speeches kept circling back to the way the Council of Ricks treated Mortys as infrastructure. His speeches drew on real grievances that the Citadel's Mortys had been suppressing for as long as the city had existed. The crowds at his rallies were enormous. The Mortys in those crowds were not just listening, they were responding, they were weeping, some of them were chanting. They were finding language for things they had been feeling for years and had not been allowed to say. If you take the speeches at face value, the campaign was a civil rights movement. A Morty was running for office on a platform of dismantling Rick supremacy, and millions of Mortys were responding to that platform with the enthusiasm of a population that has been waiting for someone to put their experience into words. The Citadel was ready to elect him. The council was alarmed. The system, at the level of political reality, was about to crack, but the show planted enough signals across the episode to suggest that this version of the campaign was the surface and not the substance. Evil Morty was not, by the evidence of his actions, a Morty civil rights leader. He did not, after winning office, dismantle the assignment system, the dormitories, the precincts, or any of the structures he had spoken against. He did not enact reforms. The Morty schools went untouched. The labor of the Morty wards was not redistributed. What he did, almost immediately, was take control of the council's apparatus and use it to hunt and kill the Ricks at the top of the Citadel's power structure. So the question is what the campaign was for. Was the Morty Rights platform a sincere expression of his beliefs that he abandoned as soon as it was no longer useful? The kind of betrayal that politicians have been performing on their bases since politics began. Was it a lie from the beginning? A cynical reading of what would generate the votes he needed, with no actual commitment to the welfare of the Mortys who voted for him? Was it a sincere belief that he held genuinely but that he subordinated to a larger goal, one that involved destroying the Ricks regardless of what it cost the Mortys in the short term? Or was the campaign not a campaign at all, in the conventional sense, but a piece of theater whose only purpose was to bring him close enough to the council's chambers to put a knife in their backs? The show has not told you which of these is correct. It has shown you the campaign, it has shown you the inauguration, the executions of the Shadow Council appear right after. The construction projects he undertook in the aftermath are shown in transition cuts and never explained on screen. And 3 seasons later, the destruction of the Citadel arrives, with the surviving Mortys among the casualties, and it has never given you a single line of dialogue in which Evil Morty explains what he thought he was doing on the campaign trail, or whether any of the things he said were things he believed. The most generous reading is that he was a believer, who became a tyrant, that he started the campaign with sincere intentions, and that the corrupting effects of power, or the unique pressures of governing the Citadel, or the necessity of moving quickly against the council before the council could move against him, twisted what he had been into what he became. Under this reading, his story is one of compromise. The political reality of the Citadel made his original program impossible, and the path he took was the path that remained open after the original path was closed. A less generous reading is that he never had a program, that the campaign was a rout-in, that the rallies were noise, and that the speeches were as carefully constructed as the eye patch on his face, designed to give every audience that listened to him the impression that he was speaking to them directly while in fact he was speaking to nobody, or speaking to one specific audience whose identity has never been revealed. A third reading, which has gained ground among certain fans in the years since the Ricklantis mix-up aired, is that the campaign was both, that he believed every word he said, and that he never intended to do any of the things he promised, and that these two states are not contradictions inside a brain like his. He could mean it sincerely and abandon it cleanly because, for him, sincerity and strategy are not separate functions. The man can hold two intentions at once and execute on both, and feel no friction between them, because the kind of mind that runs the kind of long con he has been running does not separate truth and tactic into different categories. They are the same category. The only question is which version of the truth gets surfaced for which audience. We are not going to resolve this tonight. The campaign is one of those mysteries that the show has built into the architecture of the character. Whatever evil Morty was actually doing during those rallies, the speeches he gave during them remain the longest passages of his dialogue the show has ever permitted him. They are the closest thing to a manifesto he has ever delivered, and they are still, after all these years, the place where most people who try to understand him start. Whether that is the right place to start, or whether the campaign itself was a feint designed to draw observers toward the wrong starting point, is one of the things the show has left in the open, with the door propped wide and a draft blowing through it. The seventh mystery is the killing of the Shadow Council, the off-camera, off-the-record execution that closed the events of the Ricklantis mix-up and set up everything that followed. The Shadow Council was the actual government of the Citadel, the public-facing council of Ricks. The body that everyone in the city believed was running things was a piece of political theater. The real power was held by a smaller group of Ricks who sat behind a curtain, who appointed the public council, who issued the directives that the public council then voted to approve. The Citadel had been ruled by this hidden body for as long as the city had existed. The fact of its existence was a closely held secret. Only a handful of high-clearance Citadel officials were ever briefed on what the Shadow Council was, or where it met. By the end of the Ricklantis mix-up, evil Morty knew about all of it. He knew the names, he knew the locations, the entry codes were in his hands. He walked into the chamber where the Shadow Council met, he walked past their guards, he sat down at the head of their table, and then, with no warning and no negotiation, he had them killed. The scene is brief. It is one of the most violent moments in the show. The Shadow Council, 6 elderly Ricks who had been running the Citadel from behind the scenes for years, are gunned down in their chairs without ceremony. The lights in the chamber are red. The music is heavy. Evil Morty sits at the table while it happens. He does not flinch. When the killing is over, the chamber is silent. The question the show leaves open is how he knew. The Shadow Council's existence was a secret that even most members of the public council were unaware of. The location of the chamber was unmarked. The schedule of the council's meetings was not published anywhere. The identities of its members were not posted on any official list. To get into the room he got into, evil Morty had to have intelligence that the Citadel's own elected officials did not have. There are 2 main theories for how he got it. The first theory is that he had a source. Somewhere inside the Citadel's existing power structure, there was an informant who had been feeding him information for years. A Rick, possibly. A Morty in a sensitive position, maybe. A janitor who worked in the chamber. A secretary. A security guard who had been turned. Under this theory, evil Morty did not penetrate the secret on his own. Somebody handed it to him. And that somebody is still out there, still in the Citadel apparatus, still alive after the Shadow Council was killed, still potentially feeding information to him to this day. The show has not introduced this character. The show has not named this character, but the logic of the situation suggests that there has to be someone, because the alternative is that evil Morty figured out the secret entirely by himself, and figuring out a secret that the Citadel's own leadership has spent generations protecting is the kind of accomplishment that requires resources Mortys do not have access to. The second theory is that he did figure it out himself. That over the course of years, while moving through Citadel life as an anonymous Morty, he watched and listened and built a model of the city's power structure from observation, that he noticed certain patterns in which Ricks were granted certain accesses, that he noticed certain Ricks were never on television and never on official records but were always present at certain events. And from those small inconsistencies, he reverse-engineered the existence of the Shadow Council out of gaps in public information that anyone could see if they looked closely enough. Under this theory, the secret was poorly kept. The Citadel had been so confident in its ability to hide the Shadow Council in plain sight that it had never accounted for the possibility that a Morty might be watching. The reason the secret held for generations was not that the secret was hidden well. It was that nobody who had access to the data was capable of seeing it. Evil Morty was the first person in the city's history to have both the access and the capacity, because of the device in his eye and the patience in his planning, to put the pieces together. A third reading which threads between the other two is that he had a source and he figured it out himself in parallel, that at some point in his planning, he had gotten close enough to the answer through his own observations that one well-placed contact was enough to confirm what he already suspected. Under this reading, the informant was not the origin of his knowledge. The informant was the last brick in a wall he had been building for years. We do not know which of these is correct. The show has not explained how Evil Morty knew what he knew. After the Shadow Council is killed, the chamber is sealed, the bodies are removed. The few Citadel officials who knew the Shadow Council had existed do not have time to organize a response before the new regime is fully in place. By the time the dust settles, the question of how anyone could have known where the council met is moot. The council does not exist anymore. The chamber is no longer in use. The intelligence that allowed the killing is no longer relevant because the targets are no longer alive. The mystery is preserved by the success of the operation. He could not have done it without knowing something nobody was supposed to know. He did it, so he knew. And the question of how is left for the audience to decide. There is one more piece of this that the show has not addressed. After the Shadow Council was killed, the rest of the Citadel's invisible governance apparatus remained intact. The clerks who served the council, the security staff who guarded its meetings, the procurement officers who supplied its budget, the courier services that carried its messages, the maintenance crews that kept its chamber operational, all of these positions continued to exist after the council itself was gone. We do not know what happened to the people who held them. Were they killed too? Were they kept on, with a new master replacing the old one? Did they get pensioned off, or given different jobs in the new administration? The show has not shown you any of them. They are functionaries. They are background. The show has the luxury of not having to account for them, but the existence of those positions implies that there are people in the Citadel who knew the Shadow Council existed, who survived its destruction, and who now report to Evil Morty. Whatever they know, they have not been allowed to tell you. The eighth mystery is the construction. In the period between Evil Morty's inauguration as president and the events of Season 5, the Citadel underwent a series of construction projects. The projects were never explained on screen. They were shown in passing, glimpses of scaffolding around towers that had not been there before, glimpses of Mortys working in large numbers on infrastructure, whose purpose was not clear, new buildings going up at the edges of the city, in districts that had previously been empty. The show would cut to these images during transitions, hold them for a beat, and then cut away without explanation. What was being built? The most common reading is that he was preparing for war, that after taking power, he had recognized the Citadel's vulnerability to outside threats, and had begun retrofitting the city to defend itself against the kinds of attacks that he knew it would eventually face. The eventual destruction of the Citadel in Season 5 suggests that whatever defenses were being built, they were not finished in time, but the period of construction itself implies that Evil Morty saw an attack coming and was racing to prepare for it. A second reading is that he was preparing for escape, that the construction projects were not defensive but ballistic, that what was being assembled in the empty districts at the edge of the city was a vehicle, or a series of vehicles, large enough to extract a significant portion of the Citadel's population and move them out of the local universe. The eventual events of Season 5, in which the Citadel was destroyed but Evil Morty himself escaped to a destination the show has not yet revealed, lend some support to this reading. He did escape. He went somewhere. Whatever he went on, he had to have built it, or had it built, in the years before he needed it. The construction projects we saw in transition shots might have been the assembly of that vehicle, hidden in plain sight by being broken up into so many small projects that no observer could tell what they would look like when they were put together. A third reading is that he was building infrastructure for a different kind of operation entirely, one the show has not yet acknowledged. The Citadel under the Public Council had been arranged for one purpose, which was the management of the Rick Morty system in stable equilibrium. Whatever Evil Morty was building was being arranged for a different purpose, which the show has not described. Under this reading, the construction projects were the physical expression of a vision of what the Citadel was for, that diverged from the vision that had built the Citadel originally. The Mortys working on the scaffolds were not just laborers. They were the foundation of a new social structure, whose shape was being laid down, brick by brick, in a city that had not yet realized it was being redesigned. Whatever the truth is, the workers in those shots were Mortys. They were the same Mortys, in many cases, who had voted for him at the rallies. They had not been emancipated. They had been redirected. The grievances they had carried into the campaign, the years of dormitory life and assignment life and processing, had not been addressed. They had been converted into labor. They were now building, with their hands, the next phase of a city whose previous phase had not served them. And it is one of the harder things to sit with about Evil Morty's regime, that those workers had no idea what they were building. The show does not show them being briefed. The show does not show them being given context. What the show does show them doing is working, in the rain, on scaffolding that climbs into spaces that the camera does not follow. We do not know if any of them survived the destruction of the Citadel in Season 5. We do not know if their work was destroyed with them, whether anything they built is still standing somewhere, in some piece of space outside the wreckage, waiting for the next phase of whatever Evil Morty is doing, is also unknown. The shots of the construction, taken in isolation, are some of the most disquieting images in the show. They feel like archive footage from a regime that does not yet have a name. The historians who would later study them have not been born yet. The show is showing them to you in advance. The ninth mystery is the diner. The specific diner, in the specific flashback, with the specific Rick sitting across from a specific young Morty, eating a specific plate of food, while a specific button is being demonstrated on a specific portal gun-shaped device that has not yet been used. The flashback appears in the Rick Lantis mix-up near the end of the episode, in a montage sequence whose subject is Evil Morty's origin. The scene takes place in what looks like a roadside diner. The booth is red vinyl. The lighting is fluorescent. The window outside the booth shows a parking lot at night. There is a small Morty in the booth, perhaps 8 years old. There is a Rick across from him, an older Rick, whose face the show is careful not to fully reveal in this initial appearance of the scene. The Rick is showing the young Morty a device. The device looks like a portal gun, but it has been opened. The internal mechanisms are visible. The Rick is pointing at one of the components, saying something the audience does not get to hear. The young Morty is listening intently. The young Morty's eyes, both of them still present at this stage, are fixed on the device with an expression of complete attention. This is the Rick who raised him. We know this because the scene is followed by other images from the same sequence, including the surgery scene we have already discussed, and the scene in which the young Morty, now older, kills the Rick. The diner flashback is shown to you as a piece of the relationship between Evil Morty and his original Rick before the relationship turned. It is, by the standards of the show, a tender scene. The Rick is teaching the Morty. The Morty is learning. The interaction has the shape of a real grandfather-grandson moment, of the kind that the show occasionally shows you between our Rick and our Morty in the small windows of stability between catastrophes. But the show has never told you who this Rick was. He is not given a name. He is not given a designation. No line of dialogue connects him to any of the other Ricks in the multiverse. The face the show eventually shows you is generic. It could be any Rick. It is, like Evil Morty's own face, deliberately not specific enough for the audience to place. The Rick in the diner is a Rick. He is the Rick who raised Evil Morty, and the show has refused to give you any more information about him than that. The most common theory, which has been around since the episode aired, is that this Rick was the original Rick of the original Morty. That if Evil Morty was the first Morty, the prototype, then the Rick in the diner was the first Rick, the model on which all subsequent Ricks were built. Under this reading, the relationship in the diner is the original Rick-Morty pairing, the one that all other pairings are echoes of, and the failure of that pairing, the moment when the young Morty stopped trusting the Rick across the table, was the originating wound of the entire Rick-Morty system. Every Rick and Morty pair we have ever seen in the show is, on this reading, a kind of attempt at redoing this relationship correctly, and every one of them fails for the same reasons the first one did. A different theory is that the Rick in the diner was not the original Rick of the original Morty, but was instead Rick Prime, the Rick who would later be revealed in seasons 6 and 7 to be the Rick who killed our Rick's wife and daughter. Under this reading, the Rick raising Evil Morty was the same Rick who broke our Rick's life. The same Rick who set in motion the chain of events that led our Rick to become the version of himself we have been watching since the show began. If that reading is correct, then Evil Morty and our Rick are connected at a level the show has not yet allowed them to discover. They are both shaped by the same Rick. They are both, in a sense, his children, and the fact that they have not yet faced each other across the knowledge of that shared origin is one of the largest unfilled spaces in the show's narrative architecture. A third theory, which has gained traction more recently, is that the Rick in the diner was our Rick. Rick C-137, the Rick we have been following for 10 years. In a timeline that has been erased, or in a memory that has been suppressed, our Rick is the one who raised Evil Morty before our Morty replaced him. Under this reading, the show's central relationship is, in the deep past, a version of the relationship that is now hunting our Rick across the multiverse. The Morty, who is trying to destroy the Citadel, was originally our Rick's grandson. The Morty, who is our grandson now, is a replacement who took the original Morty's place in a household where the original Morty's absence has never been acknowledged. Our Rick knows. Our Rick has known the whole time. And the reason he has been spiraling towards self-destruction since the show began is that he is being slowly eaten by what he did to the boy in the diner. The show has not confirmed any of these readings. It has shown you the diner. It has shown you the Rick. The young Morty's face has been visible from multiple angles, and it has left the question of identity, like so many questions about Evil Morty, hanging in the air between the booth and the parking lot outside. Whoever the Rick was, he is dead now. Evil Morty killed him. The diner is gone. The flashback is the only window we have into a relationship that produced the most dangerous Morty in the multiverse. And the show has placed that window in a frame that is, on purpose, just slightly too small to see through clearly. The 10th mystery is the wall. In the Season 5 finale, Rick Morai Jack, Evil Morty, returns to the show after years of off-screen activity and delivers what is functionally the longest monologue of his existence. The setting is a derelict version of the Citadel, recently destroyed. The audience is our Rick. The subject is the central finite curve. He explains, in a few minutes of dense dialogue, what the central finite curve is. The central finite curve, as Evil Morty describes it, is a piece of multiversal engineering that our Rick himself helped to design. Its function is to enclose a region of the infinite multiverse inside a boundary that only permits the existence of universes in which Rick is the smartest being. Every universe inside the curve is a universe with a Rick at the top of its intellectual hierarchy. Universes in which Rick is not the smartest being, or in which Rick does not exist at all, are excluded from the bounded region. The curve, in effect, has guaranteed every Rick in the multiverse a private region of space in which he is unchallenged. This is, according to Evil Morty, a prison. The Ricks built it because the infinite multiverse, in its full size, contains versions of reality in which a Rick is not at the top, and the existence of those versions was intolerable to the Ricks. The Ricks wanted to live in a multiverse where their own genius was the central organizing principle. The curve was the engineering project that gave them that multiverse, and the cost of that project was the elimination, from the Ricks' field of awareness, of every possible existence in which they were not in charge. Evil Morty's plan, as he reveals it in the monologue, is to break the curve and walk out into the larger reality on the other side. The question the show leaves you with at the end of that finale is whether anything he said in the monologue was true. The monologue is delivered with high confidence. It has the shape of a revelation. Our Rick, sitting across from Evil Morty during the speech, does not deny any of the claims. He has the expression of a man being told something he already knew, but had not allowed himself to articulate. The audience is invited to take the monologue at face value. The central finite curve is the structure of the show. The Ricks built it. Evil Morty is going to break it. The break happens at the end of the episode. Evil Morty walks out into the wider multiverse. The Citadel is left behind, but there are reasons to be careful about how much of this you accept on a first listening. The first reason is that the entire claim about the curve rests on Evil Morty's word. There is no second source for the existence of the curve, no historical record, no diagram, no engineering blueprint that our Rick produces to confirm what is being said. We are taking it on Evil Morty's authority that the multiverse has a structure he is describing. He is the only person in the show who has ever used the term central finite curve. If he made the term up, no character would know. The second reason is that the monologue is one of the most rhetorically polished speeches in the entire show. The cadence is precise. The selection of details is careful. The placement of pauses is, in the best sense, theatrical. This is a speech that has been rehearsed. The man delivering it has been preparing to deliver it, in something like this form, for a long time. The fact that he is delivering it now, to our Rick specifically, in this exact location, is suspicious. He could have walked out without telling anyone. He chose to make a scene of it. The scene is being made for a reason. The reason has not been explained. The third reason is that the events of the finale are in their fine details, consistent with multiple readings. Evil Morty drives a vehicle through the wall of something. The wall could be the central finite curve. The wall could be a smaller piece of citadel architecture that has been dressed up to look like a curve breach. The space he drives into could be the infinite multiverse beyond the curve. The space he drives into could be a different region of the same bounded multiverse he was already in. The show does not give you, at the level of physics, any verification of which of these is happening. It gives you the visual of a wall being broken and a vehicle going through. The interpretation of what the wall was and what is on the other side is supplied by the monologue, and the monologue is being supplied by Evil Morty. If the central finite curve is real, then the universe of the show has been radically expanded by the events of the finale. Evil Morty has access to regions of reality that no character in the show has ever seen. The implications for future seasons are enormous. If the central finite curve is not real, then Evil Morty has constructed an elaborate piece of theater whose purpose is something other than escape. He has performed an escape, in front of our Rick specifically, for reasons that involve our Rick believing he has escaped. The actual situation, whatever it is, would not match the situation the monologue described. The destination Evil Morty went to would not be the wider multiverse, but somewhere closer. The thing he is doing now would not be expansion. It would be repositioning. The show, since the finale, has not given you enough information to decide. There have been references to events that suggest the curve is real. There have been gaps in the show's coverage of Evil Morty since then that could be read either way. Whatever is true about the curve, it is the largest claim Evil Morty has ever made, and it is the claim that most decisively restructures the world of the show. If he was lying at the highest stakes available to him. If he was telling the truth, the show has changed shape around him in a way it has not yet allowed our Rick, or the audience, to fully see. The 11th mystery is the lobotomy. In the same finale, before the monologue about the curve, there is a sequence in which our Rick is captured and brought to a facility that resembles a hospital. He is strapped to a chair. A device is positioned over his head. The implication of the scene is that Evil Morty's plan involves performing some form of cognitive operation on our Rick. The operation is interrupted before it is completed. Our Rick escapes. The plan fails. The monologue happens afterward, in the wreckage of what was supposed to be the procedure. What the procedure was supposed to do has never been explained. The visual language of the scene suggests a lobotomy. The chair restraints, the cranial device, the absence of anesthetic, the cold lighting in the operating room. Everything looks like a piece of mid-century psychiatric brutality dressed in science fiction equipment. The audience is being asked to feel, viscerally, that what is about to happen to our Rick is wrong. The procedure being prepared for him is the kind of procedure that civilized people do not perform on other civilized people anymore. But the show does not tell you what the procedure was actually going to do. There are several possibilities. The first possibility is that it was a literal lobotomy in the conventional sense. Evil Morty was going to disable specific regions of our Rick's brain in order to render him cognitively incapable of continuing to be Rick. The procedure would have produced a vegetable. Our Rick, post-procedure, would have continued to exist in some sense, but the parts of him that made him dangerous would have been gone. The version of Rick that Evil Morty needed to neutralize would have ceased to exist as a functional entity. The second possibility is that the procedure was not a lobotomy, but an extraction. Evil Morty was going to remove specific information from our Rick's brain, possibly relating to the design of the central finite curve, before disposing of the rest. The procedure would have left him capable of taking the curve down himself. with information he could only have gotten from the one Rick in the multiverse who had been involved in building it. Under this reading, the monologue Evil Morty delivers afterward, in which he describes the curve as our Rick's creation, is not based on prior knowledge. It is based on what he was about to extract. The third possibility is that the procedure was something more specific, a transfer, a modification, the implantation of something into our Rick that Evil Morty needed there. The replacement of part of our Rick's brain with a piece of technology that would have made our Rick into a kind of instrument. Under this reading, the procedure was not the destruction of our Rick. It was the conversion of our Rick into a tool. The tool would have served some specific function in Evil Morty's larger plan, which was not the escape from the curve, but something that followed the escape. The escape was the cover, the conversion was the substance, and the failure of the procedure meant that whatever Evil Morty intended to do next, the next phase, had to be improvised without the asset that our Rick was supposed to have become. The show does not tell you which of these is correct. Our Rick escapes before the device is activated. The chair is destroyed in the escape. The hospital is destroyed in the destruction of the citadel that follows. The equipment, the staff, the records of what was supposed to happen, all of it is buried in the rubble. By the time anyone might have gone looking for an answer, the answer has been physically erased. What remains is the choice Evil Morty made to set the procedure up in the first place. He had captured our Rick. He could have killed him. He had every opportunity. Instead, he prepared a procedure. He took the time and the resources to build a facility, staff it, and bring our Rick to it alive. Whatever the procedure was going to do, it was something Evil Morty needed our Rick to survive. He wanted our Rick functional on some level after the operation, not destroyed, not gone, changed. The implication is that Evil Morty, even at the moment of his maximum operational ambition, did not see our Rick as a piece of trash to be removed. He saw our Rick as a piece of equipment to be modified. That distinction matters. It tells you something about the larger plan that the larger plan itself does not tell you. Evil Morty's view of our Rick is not simply that he is in the way. His view of our Rick is that he is useful for something. We do not know what. The chair is gone. The device is gone. The citadel is gone. The next time Evil Morty shows up, whatever it is he wanted our Rick to be modified into, he is going to have to do without. The 12th mystery is the question of why our Rick never saw any of this coming. Our Rick has been operating in the Citadel context since before the show began. He has been a fugitive from the Council of Ricks. He has been a target of multiple Rick-led assassination attempts. His access to the Citadel's records, the Citadel's surveillance, the Citadel's politics, has at various points been substantial. He has, at one point or another in the show's run, walked through almost every district of the city, met with members of its government, and faced the consequences of decisions made by the people who run it. He has had every opportunity, over the course of years, to notice that something was going wrong inside the Citadel's structure. He has had every opportunity to notice the rise of a small figure in an eye patch, who was working his way up the political ladder one rally at a time. He did not notice. This is the kind of failure of attention that, in any other character, would be evidence of incompetence. But our Rick is not incompetent. He is, by every other measure available in the show, the most observant person in any room he enters. He notices the temperature of a drink. He notices the body language of a stranger across a street. The brand of a manufactured tool he can identify from a glance. The Rick we have been watching for 10 years is not a Rick who misses things. So the question of how he missed Evil Morty is a question whose answer cannot be incompetence. It has to be something else. The most common reading is that he did not miss him, that he saw him at multiple points and chose not to act. Under this reading, our Rick has known about Evil Morty since at least close Rick counters of the Rick kind. The council reported the incident to him. He knew that the evil Rick they had killed had been operating under a Morty's control. He knew the small figure in the eye patch was unaccounted for. He had every reason, professionally, to track that figure down and eliminate the threat before it grew. He did not. The reason, in this reading, is that our Rick recognized, at some level he could not fully articulate, that the figure in the eye patch was someone he was not going to be able to act against without paying a personal cost that he was not willing to pay. He let the figure walk. The figure walked. the figure became the threat that the figure has now become. And our Rick, on this reading, has been sitting on the knowledge that he could have stopped it for a decade. A second reading is that he missed him, that for all of our Rick's powers of observation, the device in Evil Morty's eye was specifically designed to defeat them. The eye patch was, on this reading, an anti-Rick device. The thing it was modified to do, after Evil Morty took it from his original Rick, was render its wearer invisible to other Ricks at the level of the cognitive patterns Ricks use to read each other. A Morty wearing the eye patch could walk through a room of Ricks, and none of them would clock him as significant. They would see a Morty, dismiss him as a Morty, and move on. Our Rick would have done the same. He has done it possibly dozens of times. Evil Morty has been passing within his field of vision for years, and our Rick has not seen what is in front of him because the technology in Evil Morty's eye is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. A third reading is that there was something else interfering, that our Rick has been distracted since the events of the show began by the loss of his wife and his daughter at the hands of Rick Prime, and that the distraction has degraded his capacity to notice threats in his peripheral vision. The arrival of our Morty in his life after the loss has been a kind of grief management strategy. Our Rick has been pouring his attention into the new boy, partly because the new boy reminds him of the old life, and partly because attending to the new boy gives him something other than the loss to occupy his mind. The cost of that arrangement is that he has been operating, for years, at less than his full attentional capacity. The Evil Morty problem has been moving forward in the part of his field of view that he has not been looking at. By the time he turns his head, it is too late. The show has not adjudicated between these readings. Our Rick has not, on screen, explained how he failed to see Evil Morty coming. Our Rick has not, in any extended monologue, addressed the question of what he knew and when he knew it. The question is one of those questions about our Rick that the show has preferred to leave inside the silences between his lines, in the expressions on his face when Evil Morty is mentioned, in the small recoils he gives when the subject comes up unexpectedly. He knows something. What he knows and how he knows it, the show has not yet told you. The 13th mystery is the question that the later seasons have raised without answering. Rick Prime. Rick Prime is the character the show introduced as our Rick's primary antagonist, starting in seasons 6 and 7. He is the Rick who killed our Rick's wife Diane and our Rick's daughter, who was an earlier version of Beth. The murder is the originating wound of our Rick's character. The man we have been watching for the entire run of the show is, in some sense, the man left over after that loss. The pursuit of Rick Prime is the closest thing the show has to a central revenge plot. What has been almost entirely absent from the discussion of Rick Prime, both in the show and outside of it, is any acknowledgement that Evil Morty exists in the same universe and is doing things that might overlap with Rick Prime's interests. The two of them have not appeared in a scene together. They have not been confirmed to know each other. They have not been confirmed to be enemies, allies, or aware of one another in any specific way. The show has built two separate antagonists for our Rick across its first 7 seasons, and the question of how those two antagonists relate to each other has been left in a kind of silence that is becoming louder the longer it goes on. There are several possibilities for what the relationship might be. The first is that they are working together. Rick Prime and Evil Morty have, on this reading, been coordinating their activities since some point in the past that has not yet been revealed. The murder of our Rick's family was a piece of a larger plan whose other pieces include the Citadel takeover, the construction projects, and the eventual escape from the central finite curve. Under this reading, the two antagonists are not separate antagonists. They are one operation with two visible faces. The reason our Rick has not been able to defeat either of them is that defeating one would not stop the other. The reason the show has not put them in a scene together is that the show is saving the moment of revelation for a later season, when their cooperation can be exposed as the underlying structure of the whole conflict. The second is that they are working against each other. Rick Prime and Evil Morty have, on this reading, been operating in the same multiverse with conflicting goals, and the absence of any scene between them is a function of the fact that each has been trying to defeat the other through proxies. With our Rick caught in the middle of a war, he does not realize he is fighting on behalf of one side or the other. Under this reading, the murder of our Rick's family was Rick Prime's opening move in a campaign against Evil Morty's eventual plans. An attempt to push our Rick into a configuration that would be useful for blocking what Evil Morty was already preparing to do. Or the campaign was Evil Morty's setup, designed to push Rick Prime into making moves that would expose his location and his methods. The show has not committed to either reading. The third possibility is that there is no relationship, that Rick Prime and Evil Morty are operating in entirely separate spheres of the multiverse, with no awareness of one another, and that the show has simply chosen to develop two villains in parallel because the world of the show is large enough to support two villains at once. Under this reading, the absence of contact between them is not significant. They are not connected. The show has not connected them because there is nothing to connect. Each is the protagonist of his own threat to our Rick, and our Rick has the misfortune of being the target of two unrelated operations at the same time. The most disturbing possibility, which has been circulating in the fandom since Rick Prime was introduced, is that they are the same person at a deeper level than the show has yet shown. That the Rick in the diner, the Rick who raised Evil Morty and who Evil Morty killed, was Rick Prime. That Rick Prime survived his own death at Evil Morty's hands, or that the death at Evil Morty's hands was staged, and that Rick Prime has been operating since then under a different name and in a different theater of operations. Under this reading, Evil Morty is not just someone who killed a Rick. He is the only person who has ever come close to killing the Rick who killed our Rick's family. The two of them have been linked since before the show began, and their eventual collision has been built into the architecture of the story from the start. The show has dropped a few hints in this direction. The Rick in the diner flashback is shown without his full face, in the same way that Rick Prime has typically been shown when he appears. The technology Rick Prime uses includes neural interface components that resemble the technology in Evil Morty's eye patch. The places Rick Prime operates from include regions of the multiverse that overlap with where Evil Morty has been seen. None of these are confirmations. All of them are visual rhymes that could be coincidences, or could be the early stages of a reveal the show is building toward. We do not know which of these readings is correct. The seasons since Rick Prime was introduced have kept the two antagonists in separate storylines. The episodes in which Rick Prime has appeared have not mentioned Evil Morty. The episodes in which Evil Morty has appeared have not mentioned Rick Prime. The two of them exist in the same show without interacting, and the silence between them is, at this point, one of the most carefully maintained negative spaces in the entire production. Whatever is going on between them, the show is not ready to tell you about it yet, and the longer the silence holds, the more weight it accumulates, until the eventual reveal, when it comes, will have to be large enough to justify the weight. The 14th mystery is the armor. In the Season 5 finale, Evil Morty appears in something other than his usual yellow shirt and jeans for the first extended sequence in the show. He is wearing what amounts to a full-body mechanical suit. The suit is roughly humanoid in shape, but significantly larger than he is. It has its own articulation, its own weapon systems, its own propulsion. The Morty inside it is a small figure visible only through the cockpit at the top, with the rest of the suit operating around him as a vehicle. Where the suit came from has not been explained. The most natural reading is that the suit is one of the construction projects we discussed earlier. That Evil Morty had it built in the years between his inauguration and the events of the finale, using the same Morty labor that was put to work on the rest of the Citadel's quiet retrofitting. Under this reading, the suit is a piece of his preparation for the events he knew were coming. He needed a body that could survive what the breakout from the curve was going to involve. He needed armor that could move through environments that would not be survivable in a yellow t-shirt. The suit was built for the purpose it served. It came out of the city he had reorganized to produce it. A second reading is that the suit is older than that it is something he found, or inherited, or stole from some other operation that had built it for different reasons before he acquired it. Under this reading, the design of the suit might tell you something about its previous owners. The propulsion systems, the weapons array, the cockpit configuration, all of these are pieces of evidence about the engineering tradition the suit came out of. The show has not given you a close enough look at the suit to make a definitive identification. but the silhouette has been compared by fans to certain pieces of Citadel security equipment, to certain pieces of Galactic Federation military hardware, and, more speculatively, to certain pieces of technology that have been associated with Rick Prime. A third reading is that the suit is not a suit at all, that what looks like a vehicle is actually an extension of the device in Evil Morty's eye, projected outward into a physical form, that the suit appears around him because his neural interface allows him to generate hardware in real time, drawing on energy sources and material reserves that have been pre-positioned for that purpose. Under this reading, the suit can be summoned and dismissed at will, and the fact that we have only seen it in the finale is a function of the fact that the situation in the finale was the first one that required it. Other situations, future situations, might call for different shapes. The Morty in the suit might appear next in something that does not look like the suit at all, because the suit is not a single object, but a piece of his interface with the physical world. The show has not chosen between these readings. The suit appears, it functions, it does the work the finale needs it to do, and then it is left behind in the wreckage of the Citadel along with everything else. The next time we see Evil Morty, in whatever episode the show eventually places him in, he might be wearing something different. The suit might come back. The suit might be gone forever. The design might evolve. The capabilities might expand. The thing we saw in the finale might have been a prototype. What the suit confirms, regardless of which reading is correct, is that Evil Morty's operational capacity has expanded since the Rick Lantis mix-up. He is no longer just a Morty with a device in his eye and a campaign organization behind him. He is a Morty with a piece of military hardware that operates at scale comparable to what Ricks operate at. He is, by the end of Season 5, fighting on Rick terms. The technological gap that used to separate him from the Council of Ricks has closed. Whatever he is going to do next, he is going to do it from a position where he does not need to hide behind a borrowed Rick to make his moves. The suit means he can fight in the open. The suit means the next phase of his operation, whatever it is going to involve being seen. The 15th mystery is the train. In the Season 5 episode, Mort Dinner Rick Andre, our Rick is shown using a piece of technology that has not been explained in any earlier episode. The technology is a train. The train moves through the multiverse, not along physical tracks, but along narrative ones. Each car of the train is a different story. Each story has its own internal physics, its own characters, its own logic. The train moves from one to the next, not by traveling through space, but by switching between layers of fictional reality. The conductor of the train is a Rick. The passengers in the episode in question include our Rick and our Morty. The episode ends with Evil Morty appearing on the train and disrupting the operation. He kills the conductor Rick. He takes control of the train. He leaves our Rick stranded in one of the cars, while he himself proceeds to use the train for his own purposes. The implication by the end of the sequence is that Evil Morty has known about the train for some time and has been waiting for the right moment to acquire it. Our Rick walks away from the experience having lost control of a piece of multiversal infrastructure that he had been using as a private resource. What the train is, where it came from, and why Evil Morty wanted it have not been fully explained. The most common reading is that the train is a piece of multiversal mass transit that predates the events of the show, that it has been operating for as long as the multiverse has existed, ferrying passengers between layers of fictional reality that exist alongside the more conventional universes the show usually depicts. Under this reading, our Rick was a regular user of the train but not its owner. The train was always going to belong to someone else eventually, and the question of who would take control of it after our Rick lost interest was an open question that Evil Morty answered. A different reading is that the train is something our Rick built, that the layers of fictional reality the train moves through are simulations generated by our Rick to provide a controlled environment for certain kinds of experimentation that could not be performed in a real universe. Under this reading, Evil Morty's seizure of the train is not just the takeover of a transportation system, it is the acquisition of a piece of our Rick's private laboratory. The simulations the train moves through might contain information our Rick had stored there, projects he had been developing, copies of himself or others that he had been running for purposes we do not know. Evil Morty now has access to all of that. He can read what is in those simulations. He can modify what is in them. He can, if the simulations include people, change the lives of the people inside them. A third reading, more speculative, is that the train is a piece of something larger that the show has not yet introduced. That the train is one component of a network of multiversal infrastructure that includes other components we have not yet seen, and that Evil Morty's acquisition of the train is the first move in a campaign to acquire the rest of the network. Under this reading, the events of Mort Dinner Rick Andre are not just about losing a train. They are the opening of a longer arc whose later episodes will involve the takeover of further pieces of multiversal architecture, each of which gives Evil Morty additional capabilities that he did not have before. The show, in the season since the episode aired, has not returned to the train as a major plot point. The train has not been shown again in any extended capacity. Evil Morty's use of it, if he has continued to use it, has happened off-screen. Whatever he is doing with it, he is doing it without showing the work to the audience. Whether the train is the central mechanism of his current operations, or whether he has moved on to other tools, the show has not said. The train was introduced as a piece of Rick equipment, transferred to Evil Morty in a sequence whose abruptness was striking, and then dropped from the visible storyline. Like so many of Evil Morty's acquisitions, it is now somewhere outside the camera's view, doing work that the audience is not allowed to watch. The 16th mystery is the destination. When Evil Morty drives through the wall at the end of the Season 5 finale, he goes somewhere. The space he enters is shown briefly. It is a region of reality outside the central finite curve, if the curve is what he said it was. The shot the show gives you of this space is brief. The colors are different from anything you have seen in the show before. The light has a different quality. The geometry of the space, in the way the camera moves through it, does not match the geometry of the universes the show has been depicting up to that point. Where is that? The most direct reading is that it is the wider multiverse, the infinite reality that the Ricks built the curve to exclude. Under this reading, what Evil Morty drove into was the part of existence that contains every possible universe, including the ones in which Rick is not the smartest being, the ones in which Rick does not exist, the ones whose physics and biology and history have no relationship to anything our Rick has ever encountered. The destination is, on this reading, everything, the entire population of possible realities, accessible all at once, available for visiting in any order. Evil Morty walked out of a small bounded region of the multiverse and into the whole of it. The implications of that are difficult to take in. The size of what he now has access to is unimaginable in the technical sense that no mind, even his, can contain a model of it. A different reading is that the destination is more limited than that. That what Evil Morty entered was not the wider multiverse, but a specific other region of bounded reality that the Ricks had not been aware of. That outside the central finite curve, there is not infinity, but another curve, of a different shape, organized around a different principle. Under this reading, Evil Morty has moved from one prison into another, and the implications of his escape are smaller than they appeared in the moment of escape. He has reached a new neighborhood. The neighborhood has its own rules. He will have to learn them. He will have to work out the politics of whoever is in charge there. The space he has entered is not freedom, it is just a different cell. A third reading is more disturbing. That the space Evil Morty drove into is not a place at all, but a piece of the structure of reality that no character in the show has previously been allowed to access because no character has been built to survive it. That the wider multiverse, outside the curve, is not a habitable region, but a piece of mathematical space whose properties do not support life in any conventional sense. That what we are seeing in those brief shots of the space he entered is not a destination but a transition state, and that he will either come back changed or fail to come back at all. Under this reading, the escape was not a victory. It was a final move that committed Evil Morty to an outcome he himself could not predict. He believed he was going somewhere. The somewhere he was going might not exist in any form he can survive. We do not know which of these is correct. The show has not returned to the space. It has not shown you Evil Morty inside it. It has not shown you Evil Morty coming back from it. The brief shot at the end of the finale is the last visual the audience has been given of Evil Morty's current location, and the years of silence since have not been filled with any update. He is somewhere, Where that somewhere is, and what he is doing there, the show has not chosen to share. The 17th mystery is the system. After evil Morty took power in the Citadel, the city underwent a series of changes that have not been fully catalogued. The Council of Ricks was abolished. The Shadow Council was killed. The political structure of the city was reorganized under his direct administration. The infrastructure of the city was rebuilt in the construction projects we discussed earlier. The labor of the Morty population was redirected. The legal status of various Citadel residents was altered. The internal economy of the city was restructured, but the surveillance state of the city was preserved. And the surveillance state of the city, in some respects, was expanded. The Citadel under the Council of Ricks had been a surveillance state. The Ricks at the top of the political structure had access to monitoring systems that covered every district of the city. They could track the movements of Mortys. They could track the conversations of Ricks. Intervention in the lives of individual residents was available to them at any moment, if they decided it was warranted. The infrastructure of this system was sophisticated. It involved cameras, listening devices, automated analysis, and a force of secret police whose existence the public council did not fully acknowledge. When evil Morty took power, he did not dismantle this system. He took possession of it. The cameras kept running. The listening devices kept listening. The automated analysis kept analyzing. The secret police kept policing, under new leadership, but with the same operational mandate. The Morty who had risen to power on a platform of Morty liberation kept in place the apparatus that had been used to oppress Mortys for as long as the Citadel had existed. He kept it because he needed it. Whatever his actual project was, the project required the kind of internal control that the surveillance state was designed to produce. A city without surveillance would have been a city that could resist him. A city with surveillance, under his management, was a city that could not. This is one of the most damning facts about his regime. And the show has shown it to you without comment. The Mortys who had cheered at his rallies were now watched by the same systems that had been watching them before. The watchers had changed. The watching had not. The Mortys still could not say things in their dormitories that could not be reported back to the central authority. The Mortys still could not move through the city without being tracked. Any attempt to organize among themselves to oppose the new administration was, in any operational sense, immediately detectable and shuttable down by the new administration. The question that follows from this is why. If evil Morty's project was simply to take revenge on the Ricks, the surveillance state could have been dismantled after the Ricks were dealt with. The Mortys did not need to be watched anymore. If evil Morty's project was the liberation of the Mortys, the surveillance state was the first thing that needed to go. The presence of the cameras above their heads was the central daily fact of their oppression. If evil Morty's project was something other than either of these, the preservation of the surveillance state tells you what kind of project it was. He kept the system because the project required the system. The project required a population under control. The project was not the liberation of the Mortys. It was their conversion into a different kind of resource, controlled in a different way by a different master. We do not know, even now, what the conversion was supposed to produce. The construction projects we have already discussed are pieces of evidence. The labor extracted from the Mortys was being put to work on something. The surveillance state was keeping them at that work without complaint. The combination of the two systems, the production line and the camera, was the infrastructure of a regime that was building something specific. The destruction of the Citadel in the finale interrupted the building. The construction stopped. The Mortys, many of them, died in the destruction. What they were building, and what the regime intended to do with what they were building, is still a piece of unfinished business that the show has not returned to. The 18th mystery is the game. In the Season 2 episode Morty Night Run, our Rick takes our Morty to an arcade. The arcade is operated by aliens. The featured attraction is a virtual reality simulator called Roy, a life well lived. The simulator allows the player to live an entire human life, from birth to death, inside a few minutes of real time. The player enters the simulator. The simulator imprints him with a new identity. The player lives the life of Roy Parsons, a man in a small American town, with a job at a carpet store and a wife and a son, and a series of life events that include his son's death from leukemia his own diagnosis with cancer, his recovery, his retirement, his death by falling off a ladder while trying to retrieve a frisbee from a roof. Quick note while we are between mysteries. If you have been listening for this long, and the video has been doing what you needed it to do, a like on the video helps the algorithm understand that this kind of thing should be shown to other people who are looking for something to listen to in the same hour of the night you are listening in. The button is somewhere underneath the player. It takes one tap. You do not have to open your eyes to find it if your hand already knows where it is. If you do not feel like reaching for it, that is also a valid response to the situation. The channel will continue. The next mystery is waiting. Whatever you decide tonight, you have done nothing wrong. The microverse battery has a population of beings whose work powers a Rick's vehicle. The Citadel has a population of beings whose presence enables Rick adventures across the multiverse. The beings in the battery do not know what they are powering. The Mortys in the Citadel do not know what they are enabling. The beings in the battery have been given a religion that tells them their treadmill work is sacred. The Mortys in the Citadel have been given a culture that tells them their assignments and their schooling and their dormitories are the natural order of Rick-Morty existence. The two systems run on the same principle. The Mortys are batteries. The Citadel is the device. If this is correct, then Evil Morty's project was not, at its center, a political revolution. It was a power system insurrection. He was the first battery to figure out what the device was for. He was the first battery to figure out how to reach into the device's mechanisms and take it apart. The other Mortys in the Citadel could not see what they were powering because they were the power source. He could see, because of the device in his eye, because of the years of patient watching, because of whatever combination of factors had given him access to information the other Mortys did not have. He saw and he acted, and the device he was a part of is now in pieces around him. But the question that the show has built into this reading, and not yet resolved, is whether he wanted to destroy the device, or whether he wanted to become its operator. The destruction of the Citadel could mean either of these. It could mean that the device is gone, and that the Mortys who survived it are no longer being used as batteries. Or it could mean that the device has been retired in favor of a different device, one Evil Morty himself is building, in which the same population of beings will be used in a new way that we have not yet seen. The second reading is more chilling. Under it, Evil Morty did not free the batteries. He acquired them. He took possession of the labor force that the Citadel had been using, removed the Citadel's claim on them, and is now in the process of repurposing that labor for whatever his own operation requires. The Mortys would not be free in either case. They would just be under new management. The show has not told you which reading is correct. It has shown you a destroyed Citadel. It has not shown you what is happening to the Mortys who came out of the destruction alive. They are somewhere. They are doing something. The new device, if there is one, is being assembled somewhere out beyond the visible range of the show. And whether the Mortys are running on a different treadmill now, or whether they have been released from the treadmill entirely, is one of those questions whose answer is being kept from you on purpose. The 20th mystery is the silence. The Season 5 finale aired in September of 2021. Evil Morty walked through the wall at the end of it and went somewhere. The show has continued. Season 6, 7, 8, and the episodes that have aired since then have included many storylines, many character developments, many new pieces of the world. Evil Morty has not been among them in any sustained way. Where is he? The literal answer the show has given is that he is outside the central finite curve. The audience does not get to see what he is doing there because the audience has no access to the space he is in. The show has not built episodes inside that space. It has not given you a perspective on his current activities. He has been off camera for the entire post-final period. The narrative reason for his absence is that he is in a region of reality that the show is not currently set in. The production reason for his absence is harder to read. He is the most heavily anticipated returning character in the show. The fan demand for his return has been steady for years. Each new season has been preceded by speculation that this season would be the one in which he comes back. Each new season has, so far, ended without him coming back. The writers have addressed his absence in interviews. They have said that they have plans for him. They have said that they want his return to be earned. The writers have said that they are not going to bring him back just to have him there, that they want the return to mean something. The audience has taken these statements at face value. The audience has been waiting. The waiting has been, at this point, longer than the period between Evil Morty's first appearance and his second, longer than the period between his second appearance and his third. The longer the silence holds, the more the character accumulates weight. By the time he comes back, if he comes back, the burden of expectation around him will be significant. Whatever he does in his next appearance will have to match years of accumulated theorization. The character has become, during the silence, larger than the character was during any of the periods when he was visible. There is a possibility the show has not acknowledged, which is that he is not coming back. That the writers, in some configuration of plans they have not shared, have decided that Evil Morty's story is complete, that his escape from the curve was the final beat of his arc, that whatever he does afterward is no longer part of the story the show is telling. The audience would not be told this in advance. The character would simply not return. The expectation would, over time, dim. The space he occupied in the show's mythology would be filled by other things. He would become, in the eventual long retrospective, a character whose arc concluded in Season 5 and was never revisited. There is also the possibility that he is coming back, and that the show is waiting for a specific event in the broader storyline to trigger his return. That event would be something the writers have been building toward across the seasons since the finale. The Rick Prime storyline might be that event. The eventual confrontation between our Rick and Rick Prime, when it happens, might create the conditions under which Evil Morty's return makes sense, or the event might be something else entirely. The show is building toward something. The shape of what it is building toward has not been disclosed. What the silence tells you, regardless of the reason for it, is that Evil Morty is being treated by the show as a piece of equipment too valuable to deploy casually. He is being held in reserve. The writers, whether they have a specific plan for him or not, are not willing to use him on small purposes. His next appearance is going to do work that no other character can do. The work is being prepared, and the character is being kept off-screen during the preparation. He is, in his absence, a more powerful presence than most of the characters who are on screen every week. The 21st mystery is the one that lives behind the others. The question of who in the cast of the show is functioning as a real protagonist. The conventional reading of Rick and Morty has been that the protagonist is Rick. He is the title character. He is the smartest person in the room. He drives the action. He carries the plots. He is, by every conventional measure, the central figure. Around him, the other characters orbit. Morty is the audience surrogate. Beth is the family conscience. Jerry is the comic relief. Summer is the secondary lead. The arrangement of the cast has, for 10 seasons, treated Rick as the sun and the others as the planets. But the show has been building a counter-reading underneath that one. For as long as Evil Morty has been a character. Under the counter-reading, Rick is not the protagonist. He is a piece of damaged equipment that other characters are trying to handle. He is reactive. The grief he carries has made him, in some sense, finished. He is, in some sense, finished. The events that happened before the show began, the murder of his family by Rick Prime, the years of running he did afterward, have left him without the kind of forward motion that a real protagonist needs. He is good at solving problems that other people bring to him. He is bad at choosing what to do next when no problem is presenting itself. The character in the show with the strongest forward motion is, by this counter-reading, Evil Morty. He is the one with a plan. He is the one whose plan has been moving forward for as long as the show has been running. Every decision that drives the larger storyline has been his. The takeover of the Citadel was his choice. The escape from the curve was his choice. The silence afterward is his choice. He has been the agent of significant change in the world of the show for 10 years. Our Rick, during the same period, has been chasing after the changes that have already happened. Under this counter-reading, the structure of the show is different from what it appears to be. The visible protagonist is the title character, who is in fact a reactive figure. The actual protagonist is a recurring antagonist who has been off-screen most of the time, building a story arc whose shape only becomes visible in retrospect. The relationship between the two of them is the relationship between an obsolete piece of infrastructure and the person who is replacing it. Our Rick is, on this reading, what the multiverse used to look like. Evil Morty is what the multiverse is becoming. The implications of the counter reading are large. They suggest that the show is not, at its center, a comedy about a scientist and his grandson. They suggest that the show is, at its center, a tragedy about an old order being replaced by a new one, with the comedy operating as the public-facing surface of the story while the tragedy proceeds underneath. The further implication is that the audience has been watching, for most of the show's run, the wrong character. The character we should have been paying attention to has been a small figure in an eye patch who has appeared on screen for less than half an hour of total screen time across 10 seasons. The character we have been paying attention to has been a grandfather slowly drinking himself to death while losing the larger game without realizing he is playing it. The show has not committed to the counter-reading. The structure of every individual episode still treats Rick as the protagonist. The writers, in interviews, still talk about the show as Rick's story. The marketing still presents Rick as the central figure. The counter-reading is something the show has built into the substructure of its larger storyline without bringing it to the surface. Whether the substructure will eventually become the surface in some late season that has not yet aired, or whether the show will end before that transition is made, is one of the open questions about the show's overall shape. If the counter-reading is right, then everything we have discussed tonight about Evil Morty is more important than it would be otherwise. He is not the secondary villain of a show about Rick. He is the actual subject of the show, hiding in plain sight, allowing the audience to think he is a minor character, so that the show's real arc can develop without the audience grasping the size of what is happening until the size becomes unavoidable. The eye patch, the campaign, the killings, the construction, the train, the escape, all of it is the actual story. The dinners at the Smith house, the side adventures with our Morty, the comedy episodes in space. All of those have been the cover. The cover has been entertaining. The story has been the part you only see clearly when you stop watching the cover. The 20-second mystery is the right hand. Throughout the Ricklantis mix-up, the candidate Morty, who turns out to be Evil Morty, is shown working closely with a campaign manager. The campaign manager is a different Morty, taller than the candidate, more athletic in his build, more conventionally polished in his speech. The campaign manager is the one who handles the logistics of the campaign. He is the one who tells the candidate which rallies to attend, which speeches to give, which photo opportunities to take. He is the one who, in the closing sequence of the episode, is shown to have known the candidate's true identity from the beginning. The candidate is Evil Morty. The campaign manager has been his accomplice all along. What happens to the campaign manager afterward has not been shown. In the inauguration sequence, at the end of the Ricklantis mix-up, the campaign manager is briefly visible standing behind Evil Morty as the new president addresses the Citadel. After that scene, the campaign manager disappears from the show. The events of seasons 4, 5, and beyond do not include him. He is not mentioned. He is not shown in flashbacks. The character who was, by all visible evidence, Evil Morty's only close associate during the rise to power has been deleted from the visible record of Evil Morty's regime. Where did he go? One last thing, before the room goes quiet for the night. If there is a mystery about Evil Morty that we did not cover tonight, or if there is a theory you have been holding on to that we did not get to, you can leave it in the comments, and other people who watch the video will see it. The comments are where the audience adds to the conversation, where readings the writer did not think of get put forward by viewers who have been thinking about this character longer than the writer has. The bell icon is the other small thing. If you turn it on, the next video shows up in your notifications when it goes live. The notification is a soft one. It will not interrupt anything important. Use the bell or leave it alone. The decision is yours. The room around you is the room you started in, and the questions are still on the table where you left them. The most likely reading is that he was killed, that at some point after the inauguration, Evil Morty decided that the campaign manager knew too much about the operation to be left alive. The campaign manager had been present for every decision. He had seen the planning. He had seen the misdirection. Among the few people with full insight into how the takeover had actually worked, he was one, and possibly the only one other than evil Morty himself. A man with that kind of information, even a loyal one, is a security risk. The disposal of him would be consistent with the kind of operational discipline that evil Morty has shown elsewhere. A second reading is that he was promoted, that the campaign manager has been, since the inauguration, the second in command of the regime, operating from a position behind the throne that has not been visible to the audience. The construction projects we discussed, the surveillance state we discussed, the labor regime we discussed, all of these would have required ongoing management by someone other than evil Morty himself. Evil Morty cannot have been doing all of that work alone. The campaign manager would have been the natural candidate for the role of chief operating officer of the new regime, and his invisibility to the audience would be a function of the show's choice to keep its camera focused on the figurehead rather than on the actual administrator. Under this reading, the campaign manager is alive, in good health, and currently running large pieces of whatever evil Morty has set up since the destruction of the Citadel. A third reading is more disturbing, that the campaign manager was never a separate person, that what looked like two Mortys working together was, somehow, one Morty operating in two places, or one consciousness distributed across two bodies, or one figure projecting the appearance of a partner in order to deflect the kind of scrutiny that a lone candidate would have attracted. Under this reading, the campaign manager was a piece of stagecraft. He was as much a constructed performance as the speeches evil Morty gave at the rallies. The Mortys at the rallies thought they were watching a candidate and his manager. They were watching, in fact, a one-man operation that had been dressed up as a two-man operation for purposes of plausibility. The show has not adjudicated. The campaign manager is one of those characters who appeared, did his work, and disappeared without the camera ever returning to him. He is somewhere. He may be alive. He may be dead. He may, depending on the reading you prefer, never have existed as a separate entity. The space where his story would have gone, if the show had chosen to follow him after the inauguration, is one of the larger pieces of unfilled territory in the Citadel's history. The 23rd mystery is the one the early seasons may have hidden in plain sight. Across seasons 1 and 2, before the Rick Lantis mix-up, and before the audience had been told that evil Morty was a major character, the show featured a number of background Mortys whose roles were minor and whose identities were not specified. They appeared in crowd scenes. They appeared as extras in Citadel set sequences. Some of them showed up in the backgrounds of Council of Rick's meetings. Most of them were nameless. None of them, at the time of their appearances, were drawing attention to themselves. There is a fan theory, supported by some visual evidence, that evil Morty is among those background figures. The argument is that in certain shots from seasons 1 and 2, a figure resembling evil Morty can be seen on the margins of the frame. The figure is wearing the eye patch, or wearing something that could be the eye patch, or holding the head at the angle that the eye patch produces. The figure is doing nothing in particular. He is not part of the scene's action. On this reading, the figure is watching. Whatever he is doing in that frame, he is gathering information for the operation that will eventually become the events of the Rick Lantis mix-up. If this is correct, then evil Morty has been doing reconnaissance on the show since its first season. He has been in the audience of every Council of Rick's meeting that the show depicted. He has been in the crowd at every Citadel event. The politics of the city accumulating, the relationships between Ricks forming and breaking, the inefficiencies of the regime declaring themselves, all of it has been visible to him, while remaining invisible to every Rick in those rooms because the eye patch and the small size and the apparent unimportance of Piafres have rendered him beneath notice. The show has not confirmed the theory. The figures in the background of those shots may be just background Mortys. The visual evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. The animators may have included the figure as a deliberate Easter egg, knowing that the character would become significant later, or they may have just drawn a Morty in the background of a frame without realizing what they were doing. Without confirmation from the writers, the theory remains a theory. What is harder to dismiss is the structural argument that supports the theory. By the time evil Morty appears in the Rick Lantis mix-up as a national candidate, he has, the episode makes clear, been preparing for the takeover for years. the depth of his information about the Citadel's politics, the precision of his timing, the readiness of his organization. All of these imply a period of preparation longer than the gap between his cameo in close Rick counters of the Rick kind and the events of the Rick-Lantis mix-up. He had to have been working on this longer. The working had to have involved being inside the Citadel, watching the Citadel, learning the Citadel. The background figures in seasons 1 and 2 are the only available candidates for who that working observer might have been. Whether the theory is correct or not, the question it raises is one of the more important questions about the character. How long has he been there? The answer, on the most aggressive reading, is the entire run of the show. Every scene that involved the Citadel, going back to the first time the Citadel appeared on screen, has been a scene in which evil Morty was present, even if you did not see him. The events that the show depicted were events he witnessed. The conversations between Ricks that the show let you overhear were conversations he overheard too. The audience, in every Citadel scene, has been keeping company with a watcher whose presence has not been disclosed. If you believe that, the show changes shape. The Citadel becomes a stage on which evil Morty has been the only consistent audience member. The Ricks have been performing. The Mortys have been performing. The audience at home has been watching the show. The audience inside the show, the one with the eye patch, has been watching everyone and remembering everything, and using what he saw to build the plan that he eventually carried out. The plan was not built in the gaps between his appearances. The plan was built in the appearances themselves. He was on screen every week, in plain sight, taking notes. You just did not see him doing it. The 24th mystery is the one the show has positioned itself to answer eventually, and has, so far, declined to answer. Is he still evil? The name is the fan's name. The show has not officially endorsed it. The character has called himself many things, but he has not, in any extended sequence of dialogue, used the word evil to describe himself. The characters around him have used the word. The audience uses the word. The writers, in interviews, have used the word with the kind of caveats that suggest they are not sure the word is the right one. The actions the character has taken have been bad by most reasonable measures. He has killed Ricks. He has killed Mortys. The lies he told to a population of voters are on his record. The construction of infrastructure, whose purpose has not been disclosed, happened under his supervision. A surveillance state was kept running during his administration. He has, by the events of the Season 5 finale, presided over the destruction of an entire city in which millions of beings lived. Whatever moral system you use, the score sheet at the end of his visible career is heavily on the side of having done harm. But the show has also been careful to frame his actions in a way that resists pure condemnation. The Ricks he killed were running a regime whose abuses were extensive. The Mortys who died in the Citadel's destruction were living in a system whose continued existence was, by any reasonable accounting, worse than its destruction. The lies he told during the campaign were not larger than the lies that the Council of Ricks had been telling about itself for the entire history of the city. The surveillance state he preserved was a surveillance state he inherited. The construction projects he ran were, on the most generous reading, attempts to build something better than what had existed before. The show has put the audience in a position where the question of whether he is evil cannot be answered cleanly. The acts are bad. The context in which the acts were performed was worse. The person who performed them is not a typical villain. He has the kind of intelligence, and the kind of patience, and the kind of long-range vision that, in a different character, the show would code as heroic. The fact that the show has chosen to code these qualities in him as villainous is itself a choice the show has made, and a choice the show may revisit in later seasons. There is a possibility that he will be revealed, eventually, as the character with the most accurate moral compass in the show. That his judgments about the multiverse were right. That his actions were the actions that the situation required. That the rest of the cast, including our Rick, were complicit in a system whose injustices he was the only one willing to act against. Under this reading, the eventual revelation is not that he was secretly a hero all along. It is that the categories of hero and villain do not apply cleanly to his case, and that the audience's attempt to fit him into one or the other has been a category error. There is also the possibility that he will be revealed as worse than the audience currently believes. That the things we have seen him do are minor, compared to the things we have not seen him do. That the silent period since the season 5 finale has been a period during which he has done worse things than anything in his visible history. That his next appearance will involve revelations that recontextualize his earlier actions as preparation for crimes whose scale we have not yet been shown. The show has not chosen. The character is held in the middle, in the place where final moral judgment has not been issued. He is evil in the sense that the actions on his record are damning. He is not simply evil in the sense that the situation that produced those actions was complicated, and the alternatives available to him were not innocent. The word the fans gave him in 2014 has been the working name ever since. Whether the word will hold across the rest of his story, or whether some other word will be required by the end of it, is an open question that the show will have to settle the next time it brings him back on screen. The Citadel is gone now. The Ricks who built it are dead. The Mortys who lived in it are scattered. The eye patch is somewhere out beyond the wall, in a region of reality that the show has not let you visit. The figure inside the eye patch has been on his own, with no audience, for the longest stretch of his life. Whatever he has been doing it without witnesses. The questions we have asked tonight are not questions whose answers can be found by looking at the visible record. The visible record stops at the wall. Whatever is past the wall, the show is keeping to itself. This is the kind of mystery that is not solved by waiting for new episodes. It is solved by accepting that the questions are doing their own work in the silence. The character of Evil Morty has become, over the years of his absence, something larger than any specific reveal will be able to satisfy. The fans who have been theorizing about him for over a decade have built models of who he is and what he is doing that no actual episode could match. When he comes back, if he comes back, the version of him that appears on screen will be smaller than the version that has been growing in the audience's imagination. That is the cost of waiting this long. The waiting has made him more than the show can deliver. The next appearance, whenever it comes, will be a kind of disappointment, because no live performance can match the years of expectation that have piled up around the empty stage. But the question of whether he is evil, in the end, may not be the question the show is preparing to answer. The question the show may be preparing to answer is whether the categories he was operating against were ever the categories the audience should have been using to judge him. The Ricks built the curve to keep themselves at the top of every universe inside it. The Mortys lived inside that curve as the bottom layer of a hierarchy that the curve was designed to maintain. He looked at the arrangement and decided he did not consent to it. The decision not to consent was the decision that produced everything that followed. The eye patch, the campaign, the killings, the construction, the suit, the train, the escape. All of it was the consequence of a single act of refusal. He refused to be a battery. He refused to be infrastructure. The role of furniture in a Rick's house was not one he was willing to occupy. And the price of that refusal, paid by him and by everyone around him, has been the price the show has been showing you for over a decade. Whether that refusal was evil, whether it was right, whether it was something the categories cannot quite hold, is the question that has been sitting at the center of his story since the beginning. The show has not told you the answer. The character has not told you the answer. The audience has been carrying the question for years. Tonight we have laid it out as carefully as we can. We have walked through every piece of evidence that the show has shown you, and every piece of speculation that the show's silence has invited. The pieces are in front of you now. The answer, whatever it is something you will have to come to in your own time. The Citadel is still gone. The wall is still broken. The space beyond the wall is still unmapped. The figure in the eye patch is still somewhere out there, doing whatever it is that he is doing, with no audience and no oversight, and no one to report to. He has been doing it for a long time. He will be doing it for longer. The show will eventually bring him back, or it will not. Either way, the questions we have asked tonight are the questions that will be there when the next episode airs, and they will still be there afterward, because some of them are not the kind of questions a single episode can resolve. The night around you is still the same night it was when we began. The lights are where they were, the room is where it was, the hours have passed in their usual quiet way. The Citadel was never a real place, and the figure in the eye patch was never a real person. and the question of what he is doing right now is, in any literal sense, a question about a fictional character whose creators have not yet decided what the answer is going to be. The questions about him are still real, in the way that questions about fictional characters can be real. They have occupied real time. They have produced real thinking. They have, in some small way, become part of the experience of being a person who has watched this show. If you are still awake, the Citadel is still in pieces in the place where it used to be. The eye patch is still out beyond the wall. The Mortys who survived are still scattered across whatever is left of their old neighborhoods. The Ricks who used to run things are still dead. The questions are still open. The show is still on. The next episode is still coming, eventually, in whatever form it takes when it arrives. Until then, the answers that exist in the kind of suspended state that good mysteries occupy when the writer has not yet decided how to land them. We will wait. The character will wait. The story will wait. And when something moves, we will be here to see what it is. Sleep well. The figure in the eye patch will still be there when you wake up. He has been waiting for a long time. He can wait a little longer. The questions will keep. The Citadel is not going to rebuild itself overnight. The multiverse is not going to settle its own affairs while you are not looking. Whatever is happening out there past the wall, it is happening on its own time, and your sleeping through it does not change anything about its shape. Close your eyes. Let the room go quiet. The next episode is somewhere down the road. The next mystery is right behind it. You have done enough tonight. The questions are tucked in around you like a blanket, and they will be there in the morning, exactly where you left them, in the exact same positions, unmoved by anything you might have dreamed in the meantime. Good night. Before you sleep, there are a few smaller threads worth following. Pieces of the story that did not get their own mystery tonight, because the show has not given them enough material to support a full investigation, but that have been sitting in the corners of the visible record long enough to deserve a mention. There is the question of his voice. The actor who voices Evil Morty is the same actor who voices our Morty. The two characters use the same vocal apparatus, the same speech patterns, the same regional inflections in their accents. What separates them, when they are speaking, is the level of confidence in the delivery. Our Morty stammers. Evil Morty does not. Our Morty trails off at the ends of his sentences. Evil Morty lands them. Our Morty seems to be discovering what he is saying as he says it. Evil Morty seems to have decided exactly what he is going to say before he opens his mouth. The voice underneath is the same voice. The mind operating the voice is, in some respects, a different mind. The question this raises, which the show has not addressed, is whether the difference is a difference of training or a difference of nature. If you took our Morty and put him through whatever experiences Evil Morty went through as a child, would he end up sounding the same way? If you took Evil Morty and stripped out the experiences, would he be indistinguishable from any other Morty? The show has given you two data points on a spectrum, whose middle has not been filled in. The relationship between those 2 points is one of the things that the long silence about Evil Morty has prevented you from learning more about. There is the question of his hands. In the scenes where Evil Morty has been shown using equipment, his hand movements are different from the hand movements of other Mortys. Our Morty fumbles with objects. He drops things. He misses what he is reaching for. Evil Morty does not. His grip is sure. His placement is precise. The animators have, across the few sequences in which Evil Morty handles complex equipment, given him the kind of mechanical confidence that the show usually reserves for Ricks. The motor control he has is not Morty motor control. It is something more like what an experienced Rick would have, scaled down to a smaller frame. The implication of the different motor control has been picked up by fans as evidence for the theory that Evil Morty's brain is operating at Rick-level capability. If his hands are doing what they are doing, his cerebellum is processing the kind of information a Rick's cerebellum processes. The neural device in his eye is, on this reading, doing something to his nervous system, below the level of his conscious thought. The whole body has been modified. The eye is just the visible part. There is the question of his name. The show has never given him one. He is called Evil Morty, by the audience, by the writers in interviews, by the in-show characters who refer to him obliquely. He himself has not, at any point in his visible appearances, said his own name. He has presented himself as the candidate, He has been addressed as Mr. President. He has been called the Morty in the eye patch. None of these are names in the conventional sense. They are descriptions, roles, titles, placeholders. The actual identifier that any other Morty in the Citadel would have on his enrollment papers has not been spoken on screen. There are several possible explanations. The first is that he has rejected his original name as part of his rejection of his original identity. The Morty he was, before the events of his childhood, had a name. The Morty he is now considers that name to belong to a different person and does not use it. The second is that he never had a name to begin with, that the version of Citadel processing he went through skipped the assignment of an identifier, perhaps because he was a special case, perhaps because the program he was part of did not produce paperwork. The third is that his name is a piece of information so closely held that he is saving it for a specific moment in the future, when revealing it will mean something. Under that reading, the name is being kept off the table. The way a chess piece is kept off the board until the move it makes is the move that wins the game. There is the question of his face under the eye patch. We have not been shown what is under it in any sustained close-up. The brief glimpses the show has given have been of an empty socket with a connection port in the back of it. What is past the socket, what is happening on the other side of the connection, is something the show has been careful not to depict. Whatever the device is doing to the brain it is attached to, the work happens in territory the camera has not entered. There is the question of his clothing. He wears a Morty's clothes. The yellow shirt, the blue jeans, the white shoes. This is the standard issue uniform of Morty's in the Citadel. He has not adopted Rick clothes. He has not adopted the suit and tie of a politician. The outfit has remained, even after taking power, the standard Morty kit, not replaced with something that would identify him as the head of a regime. He kept the uniform. The decision to keep the uniform might be a sentimental gesture, a refusal to abandon the marker of who he was before he became who he became. It might be a piece of camouflage, an ongoing operational discipline that makes him harder to identify when he is moving through environments where being identified would cost him. It might be a piece of theater, a deliberate signal to other Mortys that he is still one of them, even as the policies of his regime confirm that he is not. There is the question of his food. He has been shown eating, in a few scenes, what appears to be ordinary Citadel cuisine. He has not been shown indulging in luxuries. The drinking that the show associates with Rick's is absent from his depicted behavior, nor has he been shown sleeping in any environment that the show has depicted. The basic human functions that the show occasionally lets you see other characters performing have, in his case, been largely absent. The character is, in the visible record, almost entirely public. The private life that would tell you what kind of person he is when no one is looking has been kept out of view. These are small things. Each of them, on its own, is not enough to build a mystery around. Taken together, they form a portrait of the kind of character he is. He is precise. He is private. His roots are in a history he does not display. He keeps his interior life out of the public record. He uses the visible parts of himself, the clothes, the voice, the hands, the eye patch, as instruments. The instruments are operated by something underneath that the show has not yet shown you. Whatever is underneath has been there for a long time, and is, on the available evidence, still there. The room around you is still the room it was when we started. The voice you have listening to is still the same voice. The questions we asked have been asked. The answers, where there are answers, have been offered in the form of multiple possible readings, none of which the show has confirmed. The questions that do not have answers have been left where they were. They are still open. They will be open in the morning. They will be open for as long as the show continues without addressing them. And they will be open afterward in some form, even when the show ends. Because some questions about fictional characters survive the end of the fiction that produced them. The character of Evil Morty is, at this point in the show's history, larger than the character can be inside any single episode. He has accumulated the kind of weight that only happens when an audience has had years to think about him, without new material to dilute the thinking. Whatever comes next, it will be measured against years of accumulated speculation. Whatever it turns out to be, it will not be what every person watching has been expecting. because every person watching has been expecting something different, and the actual answer can match only one set of expectations at a time. If you have made it this far, you have done the work. The citadel is in pieces. The Ricks at the top are dead. The Mortys are scattered. The wall is broken. The figure in the eye patch is somewhere out past the wall, doing whatever he is doing. The next episode is in some unfinished state in the writer's room, or it is finished and waiting to air, or it has not been written yet and is sitting in the place where stories sit before someone decides to tell them. None of that is your problem right now. Your problem right now is the part of the night you are still awake for. The rest of the night will arrive on its own. The episode will arrive on its own. The answers will arrive on their own. The character will arrive on his own. None of it requires your attention to occur. The Citadel does not need you to keep watching it. It existed before you found it, in the form of a few sketches in a writer's room, and it will exist after you stop thinking about it, in the form of recordings on a server somewhere. The figure in the eye patch does not need you to keep theorizing about him. The theories will continue to be made, by you or by someone else, as long as there are people watching the show. He has not been hurt by the silence about him in the show. He has, in some sense, benefited from it. The silence is the medium in which he has grown larger. Your attention has been part of that growth. Your attention can now rest. The character will continue to grow without it. The questions are still here. They have been laid out tonight. The eye patch is on the table. The origin is on the table. The diner is on the table. The campaign is on the table. The council is on the table. The construction is on the table. The train is on the table. The wall is on the table. The destination is on the table. The morality is on the table. The silence is on the table. They are not going anywhere. The next time you come back to them, they will be where you left them, in the same arrangement, with the same shapes. You can leave them now, and they will keep. The light in the room is the light you started with. The temperature of the air is the temperature it was. Your breathing has slowed down, or it has not, and whichever of those is true, it is the right one for tonight. The Citadel is gone. The Mortys are scattered. The Ricks are dead. The figure in the eye patch is out beyond the wall. The show is still on. The next episode is somewhere down the line. The story is being written by people in a room you are not in, on a schedule that does not depend on you, with decisions that will be made without consulting you. You will see what they decided when you see it. Until then, you are not responsible for any of it. The hour has gotten late while we have been sitting together. The night outside the window has settled into the part of itself that is the most quiet. There are no cars passing at this hour, or if there are, they are far away. The kind of silence that the room is holding right now is the kind that takes a long time to arrive and does not arrive every night. It is here now. Whatever you have been carrying into this evening can rest in that silence for a while. The questions about the figure in the eye patch can rest in it. The questions about who you are and what you have been doing with your evening can rest in it. The whole shape of the day that is ending can rest in it. The silence is large enough to hold all of it. The mattress under you is the same mattress. The pillow is the same pillow. The position your body has settled into is the position it found on its own, while you were not paying attention. Your eyes have been closing for a while now. The room has been getting dimmer in the way that rooms do, when the person inside them is on their way out. There is nothing left to do tonight. The questions are laid out. The Citadel is gone. The figure is past the wall. The story is in the writer's room. Everything that needed to be set down has been set down. Good night. The questions will wait. They always do. And they are nobody.